Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this story out of Boston because the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, of the No Whites Allowed at this particular Christmas party infamy.
This has been a long-standing tradition. It was my turn to host. It's happened every single year, and also multiple other parties that everyone has been invited to. So, for example, Monday we're hosting the holiday party that the city hosts every single year, and inviting all of the city council, the state legislature, all of our elected officials, along with our cabinet, just to thank everyone and celebrate for the holidays. So there are many invitations out there.
Has decided to use Martin Luther King Day in order to go up and give a speech about how Dr. Martin Luther King really was concerned about the color of people's skins, not the content of their character. No, I'm not joking about this. Yes, this is a real thing, and we're going to talk about it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
People all across the country and here in Boston honoring the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Our Charmin Sacchetti is live in the city right now. And Charmin, the mayor ended up using one speech as an opportunity to fire back at critics.
Mayor spoke this morning at the Boston Convention Center, and she did fire back at her critics, accusing them of ginning up misinformation.
So there are a bunch of different psychological things going on right here for Mayor Michelle Wu. Now, to be clear, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on the internet.com. So all of my diagnoses, while 100% dead on accurate, are backed up by a non-existent medical degree. So you might want to take them as if that is true, and because it is. But that being said, right off the bat, we have main character syndrome. She is being asked to give a speech for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It is a holiday that is not about her. It's not about the mayor of Boston. It's not about Asians or anything like that. And she's taking this opportunity to make it about her, to make it about her stupid Christmas party, and make it about the people who accurately and rightfully called her out for her ridiculous racist party. On top of that, if you don't remember that story, she not only sent out the invitation to everyone, but then rescinded it, saying no whites allowed after the fact.
I think we've had individual conversations with everyone, so people understand that it was truly just an honest mistake that went out in typing the email field, and I look forward to celebrating with everyone at the holiday parties that we will have besides this one as well. So it is my intention that we can, again, be a city that lives our values and create space for all kinds of communities to come together.
The mayor apologizing for any confusion that the original email created.
And the fact that she thinks that is aligned with the American perception of the civil rights movement is absolutely shameful in every possible way.
Economically stable.
At the Boston Convention Center, a breakfast to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu firing back at critics of her Electeds of Color holiday party.
I am tired of those fearmongers and mob baiters who fan the flames and call for unity.
Now look, I gotta say something to you guys out there in the audience, and I'm not sure how you guys are gonna receive it, but just know in your heart of hearts that I'm 100% correct. There is a perception from the American right based on Martin Luther King Jr. having to kind of put his advocacy for civil rights in American terms because of the time period in which he existed, that makes people assert without evidence that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be opposed to all of this woke nonsense, this DEI crap, and whatever. But the thing is, I actually don't believe that's the case. Almost all of the contemporaries who were alive, who knew Martin Luther King Jr., who were in the civil rights movement, who marched with him and all of that, are pushing this woke nonsense. Almost all of them are agents of the Democratic Party, and I have no reason to believe that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would not have moved with it. Again, the reason why he is so beloved nationwide, the reason some of his speeches are so quotable, is because as a tactic, he had to kind of put all of his advocacy in terms that were broadly appealing to the American population. So he would talk about the promises of the Declaration of Independence, the promises of the Bill of Rights, but in today's day, he likely would be on the train that everything in America is evil white racism, the Constitution is evil white racism, and a large portion of the population and a large portion of you guys out there in the audience would oppose him. The thing is, he was assassinated, and when he was assassinated, the myth of Martin Luther King Jr. took over the man. Like all men, he was flawed. Like all men, there are things that you disagree with him. And the best quotes, the best speeches, the best way of phrasing his calls for equality back in the day are what live on, and that is what is considered to be his legacy. But again, he was a complicated person, and considering the way that almost all of his contemporaries have moved dramatically into this anti-white camp, we have no reason to believe that he wouldn't do the same. So I'm just going to say right off the bat that people who are asserting that she's against the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr., it's not accurate. But the reason why we have Martin Luther King Day, she is against that, if that makes sense.
The mayor says no one thinks twice when other groups meet and accused critics of ginning up misinformation.
All right, so now that I've clarified my thoughts about where MLK Jr. would be if he were alive today, I just want to point out that the mayor of Boston is completely incompetent and incredibly stupid. The idea that nobody bats an eye when other groups, the implication being white groups, have their own events or something like that, is ridiculous and absurd in every possible way. Every single ethnic group, whether they be Asian, Indian, Black, whatever, can have their own clubs, can have their own things, and that will not be questioned. Go try to form a white student union on any college campus in this country and see what happens to you. Now, if you subdivide the groups, which I actually think makes more sense because Irish people are different from English people, which are different from French people, which are different from German people. They're unique cultures that happen to be on the continent of Europe. Then you might be perfectly fine. But in reality, yes, there would be outrage, much more outrage, national media coverage, if this were a whites-only legislative party. If in response to her no whites party, the white legislators decided to get together and have a counter-protest party, people would only cover that in the mainstream news and say, oh my god, look at all this white supremacism. It completely came out of nowhere, but it was also existing the entire time. Aren't white people so racist? So she's being ridiculous. She's being absurd. She did a no whites party. If you did a no Asians, no blacks, no Hispanics, or whatever, you would run into similar, if not worse, criticisms, especially if the people behind it happen to be white. So what she needs to do is shut the hell up, take the criticism on the nose, and the fact of the matter is, even when she was caught, she doubled down on it, so we know where she stands. She is objectively anti-white.
Viral outrage ricocheted internationally as those who had never before cared about representation railed against this as exclusionary.
So there's two tactics that are obvious right here if you're just paying attention. So first and foremost, you question the motive. She's like, people who never ever cared about representation all of a sudden were concerned about what was going on in the city of Boston. So you're evil, white and racist. You never cared about this before until you were excluded.
Viral outrage ricocheted internationally as those who had never before cared about representation railed against this as exclusionary.
And then she follows it up with that complete and utter absurdity where she's like, and then they acted like this was exclusionary. All we did was throw a party for non-whites, accidentally invite everybody, and then when we realized we accidentally invited everybody, specifically sent out emails to white representatives in order to tell them they were being excluded from this, and you guys had the nerve to call that exclusionary. What the hell is wrong with you? Why don't you just take the exclusion that we're giving you? No whites allowed. Do I need to hang a sign? How dare you be outraged by the thing that I'm actually doing? How dare you try to hold me accountable? I am the mayor, therefore I am a god to the citizens of Boston, and I can do whatever I want, including violate discrimination laws. Now look, Michelle Wu was not the only one whining, complaining, trying to deny reality, and being upset about being held accountable. The keynote speaker spent a good portion of his particular speech whining and complaining about how Harvard isn't black enough.
The keynote speaker is a history, race, and public policy professor at the Harvard Kennedy School.
Across all of Harvard, black tenured faculty are only 6% out of 581 total tenured faculty. That's 35 people in the oldest, richest, most powerful, and apparently wokest academic institution in America.
And then follow that up by crying over the fact that Claudine Gay was held up to the same standards that freshmen at community colleges are held up to, which is you can't plagiarize, because it turns out she was a plagiarizer.
He also took aim at those who criticized diversity in the wake of Harvard President Claudine Gay's resignation.
The charges of reverse racism coming from elite politicians and billionaire donors is not just laughable. These false claims are a form of the most extreme misinformation and a colossal expression of hypocrisy.
So to be clear to the dopey keynote speaker, nobody is charging anybody with reverse racism. It's just racism. It is discrimination based on race. You are asserting that it's reverse racism because you're trying to add in this whole power dynamic thing, which, by the way, doesn't even cut in your favor because, again, the head of the most prestigious university, definitely in the United States of America, probably in the world, was an underqualified black woman. She was in a position of power, and she ended up getting taken out of it because of basic standards that would have taken out somebody else years earlier from that position, or never allowed them to be in that position in the first place. As far as Michelle Wu and her racist party, if you're going based on the definition of prejudice plus power, she's the mayor of the city of Boston, the top job in that particular city, and she is discriminating. So again, it's just racism. That's what we're calling out.
Charges of reverse racism coming from elite politicians and billionaire donors.
The reverse of racism is not being racist, not discriminating based on the color of people's skin, the most obvious thing ever.
Now, Governor Healey also spoke announcing her administration is taking steps to open up more state and local contracts to more diverse and small businesses.
And what's great about this is that the local news segment wraps it up by saying that the governor actually spoke at this event and said that they were going to open up more state contracts to more diverse small businesses. So they're going to be basing this on the color of people's skins. And that is, of course, the governor of Massachusetts, the top spot in that state. So what we have here is discrimination based on race from the most powerful official in the state of Massachusetts. I wonder if even based on their stupid power dynamics definition, if that would fit the mold of racism. But no, we can't ever talk about that. We all got to talk about how Michelle Wu is the victim because we all saw what she did and we reacted to what she did. And how can she ever be removed from her victimhood being an Asian woman who, of course, is in the highest income earning demographics in the entire country and being the mayor of a major city? She is so oppressed that she got to that slot and she's able to discriminate based on race and not face any real consequences or sanctions or anything like that. Now look, I know somebody's gonna mention this, so I'll just throw it out there that her husband is in fact a white person. She has 2 kids with that person, so yet another situation of anti-white in the streets but pro-whites in the sheets. But you know, that's really not any of my business. It's not any of your business, and I don't want to mention it except for the fact that I do want to mention it, which is why I'm not going to edit this out of the video. But I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Michelle Wu was able to have this party even after it was exposed, even after she got criticized for it. She promoted it, she was happy about it and all that, yet she's still complaining that you haven't accepted it. Is there something wrong with her other than what I've diagnosed with my non-medical degree? Let me know, again, your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the mayor of Boston, still crying over the fact that you noticed what she was doing. Till next time.